Hello, and welcome to the ECR Retail Loss, Sell More and Lose Less podcast series. My name is Colin Peacock. I work with a community of experts and academics who are keen to share their latest research findings and best practices. And every week or two in this series, I'll be joined by one of those experts and academics to discuss some of the very latest insights from our meetings and discussions and research on best practices. This week I'm joined by Professor Beck, and we're looking at the problem of item not on file at the self-checkout. What can be done to prevent it, and when it happens, what can be done to minimise loss? Yesterday we had our self-checkout working group meeting, and we were talking about the sort of problem of perhaps unknown items, unknown because they might not be on file, or unknown because they couldn't be read, or they're reading something else at the self-checkout, which meant an intervention which took between sort of 12 and 24 seconds to resolve, if it was resolved correctly. We had, I think, about 50 or 60 retailers join the call from around the world, our friends from Australia as well as friends from America, the West Coast. And it was a really great discussion. We for about 75 minutes, and we heard from a lot of the retailers what they were thinking. We had some benchmark data as well, shared earlier in advance. Very productive session, I thought. So we're going to anniversary it in 2025. But what were your notes, and what should we be looking out for in 2025, perhaps?
Yes, it was initially on paper, it looked a very dry session, didn't it? But actually,
it
generated some really interesting debate because, we know from one of our earlier surveys we've done on SCO that retailers think about 48% of the losses at fixed SCO are probably non-malicious, that it's things going wrong. And we've never really been able to unpick much data around what is going wrong in that space in terms of generating that level of loss for, the retailer and obviously the shopper. And so this was an interesting insight. And first of all, is it because the item hasn't just been registered on file, and therefore when the customer comes to scan it, nothing happens, and therefore they have to try and get a member of staff to come over and key in some sort of generic code or the right code, depending on what it could be, which can mean you lose margin. But what was really interesting was the extent to which retailers began to talk about the issue of it not necessarily not being on file, but just that the barcode wasn't being read easily. And this incredible mix-up with QR codes that we really weren't aware of, whereby the scanner is picking up a QR code instead of the barcode, because they're often placed in very close proximity on the packaging increasingly. And so what seemed to be happening, and we heard one retailer who was saying, this happened 42,000 times a week where the scanner was doing this. And so the shopper, probably hears the bleep because the scanner makes a noise that it's seen a QR code, but the consumer thinks it's scanned the item, and off they go. But it hasn't actually registered. So it was really insightful in terms of helping us think about what's going wrong sometimes around this, not only this QR code issue, but also we heard about, the classic problems around packaging itself, how easy is, the positioning of barcodes on there, the type of packaging. But also this issue around the wrong barcode being read by the consumer, particularly ones for pack barcodes and distribution barcodes that can easily confuse consumers. And there's been some great examples of that where, the consumer thinks they're scanning the right barcode, but they're not, and off it goes and it generates loss. So it was really interesting in terms of helping us think through what may be going on to explain why these mistakes are being made at self-checkout.
Yeah, and certainly we heard a lot of retailers, some of them, had put in place a process whereby they could communicate these errors, to the merchants and to the head office people. We also heard from one retailer that was really leveraging the SCO hosts and those right at the front line, and that goes back to your report, to actually report these up and as they happen. We heard about, retailers who've got their own software that can sort of automatically update every single store if they pick up on an error. But yeah, this QR code is a big one, and I think it's going to get bigger because there's going to be more of them.
Yeah, it was really, and I actually went away and started looking at some packaging in my house, and it is, quite frequently the barcode and the QR code are very close to each other. I presume it's, they've been, it's a classic example, isn't it, of people not talking to each other in terms of the basically the introduction of new products and packaging, which is, it probably makes a lot of sense to the designer to put the QR code near the barcode, but they've not spoken to the people who have got responsibility for managing loss in stores, and this confusion within that.
Yeah, we saw a lovely little comment in the chat about that, very sharply observed person sort of talking about exactly what you just said, that no one's talking to each other.
Nobody talk to me about this.
Yeah, I wouldn't let this go, but yeah.
But it also struck home to me, increasingly you need to be much more joined up and thinking through about, because SCO is becoming so dominant, particularly in grocery, that you've really now got to go back and say, to what extent is product packaging SCO friendly? Is it gonna have an impact now, because it generates so much potential problems within our retail businesses that we really now need to go back to the root cause of some of this stuff rather than sticking plasters and say, look, manufacturer, you need to think this through now. It's causing these problems. Here are top 50, top 100 lines that are consistently causing problems at the checkout. What can you do to try and minimize this issue through the design and layout of your packaging on your products?
Yeah, no, that was really good. You also made a point about friction, I think, in the call, and from a consumer perspective, and how does it, create confusion potentially? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, we've seen this, haven't we, with problems around walkaways and this issue of contactless payment, where it can be sometimes tricky for the consumer to know whether it's worked or not. The thing bleeps and off they go, and they think it's happened because it's contactless. And that's proved challenging for some retailers. And I think it's the same here, which is, how do you let the consumer know something's gone wrong? And we've seen good examples in some retailers where, the screen, they make maximum use of the screen. It changes color. It says to the consumer, hold on, payment's not hasn't happened. We're going to get you some help. And I think it's the same with potentially when items don't scan. They need to use that interface to inform the consumer that something now needs to happen. We're going to get a member of staff over. This needs to be fixed before you can proceed. And we heard from one retailer that was doing that, but for a lot of others, the system bleeps and things just move on. And there's an expectation that the consumer is going to be assiduous and keep an eye on all this. And really, well, why should they? Because it's down to you to make sure that this packaging works properly and creates a seamless experience for the shopper.
Yeah, no, fascinating. Well, look, you're right. We're going to get some really good insights into the non-malicious as we sort of learn more about this. And we're planning to anniversary this meeting, but also I think we're going to do some work in terms of finding out what those top items are in terms of, not actually scanning. So that's all for now. So thank you very much for your updates and your key insights. And we will, as I say, anniversary this meeting in February 2025 and see where we've got to. Has the reporting and dashboards been put in place? What is the actual rate? Is it 0.8%? Is it 5%? And we'll go from there. So thank you very much indeed, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers, Colin. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to all the ECR Retail Loss community for the sharing of their knowledge, their research, and latest learnings that ensure that we become truly a global platform for learning. My name is Colin Peacock. This is the Sell More and Lose Less podcast. And if you liked it, please subscribe so you automatically get all future episodes. And also, if you think your colleagues and friends might also like it, please ask them to follow ECR Retail Loss on LinkedIn and tune in to our next podcasts. If you didn't like it, then let us know and we'll try and fix it. Either way, see you next time. Thank you again.